If you have ADHD, like I do, or you find yourself mindlessly scrolling on your phone on short form content all the time, it can feel very, very daunting to try to get back into reading if that's one of your goals, or to start reading regularly as an adult if that's your first time. But I promise you that it is not as terrifying as it seems, and I'm going to give you some suggestions on how to realistically get your attention span back and be able to read more and more often and to comprehend and take in everything that you're reading. I know it's hard when your attention span is fried. I've been there. I still have the occasional issue, but I'm going to give you some advice on that and also sprinkle some book suggestions in between my tips. So let's go ahead and get started. So tip number 1, pick the silliest, most ridiculous, most fun book that you can find that isn't going to change the world, but it will keep your attention. We're starting out with a completely fried attention span. I am not a neurologist, but I have read some papers. Dopamine is something that our brain works on. It's our reward system. Especially with us with ADHD, we have issues with dopamine. So trying to go from short form content where you're constantly getting the reward of dopamine to reading The Count of Monte Cristo in a week, reading 1,200 pages, isn't going to work. You're not going to do a marathon or a triathlon in a week without any training, and you shouldn't do that to your brain either when it comes to reading. So you're going to have to game the system a little bit and let yourself have a little bit of instant gratification with your books. I do have some suggestions for books. These are just silly, goofy books. I'm not necessarily saying that I think these are the best books in the world, though 1 or 2 of them I really enjoy. They're just easy to grab your attention and are basically like a gateway drug into enjoying books in a more delayed gratification way. So some books that I think are great for this, which I'm not going to go too far into them because we have fried attention spans and you can read the synopsis. I will put all the books in the description. Tusk Love by Thea Guanzon is less than 300 pages. It is kind of D&D related, and I think it was based off of Critical Role. One of their campaigns, one of their characters was reading this book. So they commissioned Thea Guanzon, who also wrote The Hurricane Wars, to write this book. This one is about a merchant's daughter and a half-orc who fall in love, and it's so much better than it sounds. It's actually, I don't think it's silly goofy like it's stupid. I think it's silly goofy like you're gonna have a good time. And it's under 300 pages. It's a great book to get you into reading, especially if you like fantasy or you like listening to D&D podcasts or you like Dropout or Critical Role or any of those types of things. This feels like an episode of a D&D podcast in a book. Easy and quick to read. Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This one, if you don't know Omegaverse, maybe look into it a little bit before you read this. It is a romance and it does have some spicy scenes, but it is about a daughter of a powerful vampire councilman and a werewolf who end up having to get married to uphold a treaty. It's very silly. It's very fun. I blew through it. I don't like any other Ali Hazelwood really, except for this and like maybe a couple others. But I found that so fun and such like an addictive quick read. This one I'm honestly surprised I liked because it's the only dark romance I've ever read that I either haven't A, DNF'd or B, hated and felt like it was just like QAnon porn. This is not that. This is silly. It's like one of those masked men, kind of like, you know, those things that were going around TikTok. The masked men who dance or have like thirst traps. This girl keeps commenting on this guy's TikTok and tells him to come over and blah, blah, blah. And he calls her bluff. It's very consensual. It's interesting. It's ridiculous and silly, and I loved this. It is not, like I said, the next great American novel, but it's perfect for being one of the silliest, most fun books you can read to get you back into reading. It will definitely get you into the reading mood. Moving on to tip number 2, start out with shorter books. Like the Tusk Love book, that one's under 300 pages. You should read some books that are a little bit shorter. Like I said, you need to ease into expanding your attention span. Sitting down to read a really long book, you can do it. Maybe you're an outlier and you won't have any issues, but I think reading shorter books and working up to longer books, especially when you haven't read in a really long time, is a great way to ease yourself in. And I do also have some suggestions for novellas or shorter novels that you can read. So some books that I would suggest for that is like a cozy sci-fi post-capitalist interesting book is A Psalm for the Wild Built. What Moves the Dead by Kingfisher is a kind of a loose retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, which is one of his shortest stories. This is longer than that. It's probably like, I think 150 pages. but if you're into more horror-y type of stuff, you'll probably like that. The Dead Cattail Assassins is by Djeli Clark. That is about a assassin who is neither a cat nor has a tail, but it's a very, very interesting story that will grab you. I actually listened to that one on audio, which I'll talk about later. And then Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater is a little bit of a Regency fairy book that's not like your typical fairy smut book, which I've enjoyed before, so I'm not like talking down on those. But Half a Soul is... It's an interesting story that has a very wholesome romance in it and a really interesting story about a girl who gets half her soul taken away by a fae who tricks her and the man who's going to try and help her get her soul back. It's way more than that, but again, I'm not going deep into these book suggestions because we got some more tips to go through. Tip number 3, in all transparency, I have not actually done this, is tandem reading. Tandem reading is listening to an audiobook and a physical book or an ebook at the same time. So listening to the audiobook and reading a physical book at the same time is what you would call tandem reading. A lot of people, this helps them with their attention span. To me, it reminds me of when I was in like elementary school, kindergarten, or first grade, and your teacher would tell you to read along in a book as they're reading it out loud. It kind of reminds me of that, and I do think that psychologically, maybe that will help some people. I've never done it, like I said, mostly just because if I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm probably working with my hands doing crochet or something like that, but I've heard really, really good things. I don't have any specific book suggestions for that. I have heard the Dungeon Crawler Carl series is really good on audio. That would probably be a good one to tandem read since they are longer books. But there are audiobooks that are exclusive to Amazon, which I do not like supporting, especially books that are exclusive to one platform or another. That really bothers me. So I just read the physical books of those, but I do sometimes wish I had the audio of those, and I've heard people say it's a great audio. So you could tandem read that. Tip number 4 is on a similar note as tip number 3. This one is specifically just to listen to audiobooks. I do this sometimes. It works particularly for me as someone with ADHD when I have something else that's mostly mindless to do with my hands. I'll crochet, which at this point I have been a crocheter for so long that a lot of it's second nature, especially the easier stitches. So I'll listen to an audiobook and be able to kind of pay attention to both, but mostly pay attention to the book. Or like playing a game like Power Wash Simulator, it's pretty mindless. I will design and listen to audiobooks at the same time, though I get too into my design sometimes. I'm actually somebody that can't always listen to audiobooks because I have the opposite problem where if I'm listening to an audiobook and I'm also doing something else, unless it's a very specific thing that I'm doing, I'll forget to pay attention to the audiobook. So it just depends on the person. You can try it out, see if it works for you. A lot of people get a lot out of audiobooks when they're doing some sort of other task that they don't like cleaning. That's another good hack, is if you need to clean or you need to do something else, you can make it more fun by rewarding your brain with an audiobook. And no matter what anyone tells you, audiobooks are a form of reading. Oral storytelling is literally our oldest form of storytelling. There have been studies that confirm that the same thing happens in your brain when you're listening to an audiobook with comprehension and enjoyment that you would get from reading a physical book. Some of my favorite audiobooks, which some of them I feel are better as audiobooks, are First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I read the second book just physically, First Time Caller, as an audio because I got it as a advanced copy. And I found it really interesting, especially because it's based on a radio show. It's a romance it's set off of a rom-com. And First Time Caller is based on that. So our male main character runs a radio show. So they have their radio calls in between where the main characters talk to each other on the radio, and there will be a snippet of the radio show. So that one's really fun. Dead Cattail Assassins by Djeli Clark is just so good because I really, really like the audiobook narrator. She really keeps you focused on it. I told you about that book earlier. It is a kind of a dark horror-esque fantasy that's pretty short. It's only like a 4-hour audiobook. So that one's an easy one to get into, and it's really, really good. Princess Floralinda and the 40-Flight Tower by Tamsin Muir. I was only able to get it on audio because I think it was like a really limited run physical book, but that was really great too. It's about a princess who is going to save herself from the tower because the witch that put her there made it too hard for all the princes to come get her. She put the hardest stuff at the bottom and the easiest stuff at the top of these 40 flights, and no one can survive, so she has to save herself. And then Listen for the Lie is one that I honestly haven't read in a couple years, but when I remember listening to this book, it's about a woman who wakes up and isn't sure if her best friend, she can't remember anything, so everyone in the town thinks that she did it, and she can't honestly say in her mind if she did or not. Someone reaches out who is creating this podcast because they are looking into this unsolved murder, and she wants to find out herself if she's the one that did it to her friend. So it ends up being intertwined with this podcast. It's kind of like Serial, the Serial podcast where they investigate unsolved crimes. This is like that, except she ends up intertwined with it. And like First Time Caller, there are snippets of the podcast itself in the beginning for the audiobook, which I found really interesting. I honestly don't know if I would have liked Listen for the Lie as much if I had read it physically instead of listening to it. I think I got a lot out of it by listening to it. Tip number 5 is to read the genres that you want to read. Don't read a genre like classics or romance or whatever because everyone else is reading it and they say how good it is. If you've tried out those genres and they don't work for you, don't read them. You don't have to read them. You can read whatever genre you want. If you think you hate sci-fi, but everyone's talking about Project Hail Mary, which honestly is a good book. I read it several years ago before the movie came out. But if you don't like sci-fi, don't read it. You don't have to read it. You don't have to force yourself to like what everyone else likes. And I honestly had a problem with reading slumps over the last year or two because I was forcing myself to read mostly like contemporary romances, fantasies that I wasn't super interested in. When I realized I like dark fantasy or horror or darker, grittier sci-fi, that's just what I like. And once I started reading more and more horror or other darker books that I like, I had so much better luck. I enjoyed it so much more. I would do higher ratings. I don't force myself to read books that I don't like, and you can always DNF. That is tip 5.5, is to let yourself DNF if you're reading a book that you don't like. There's nothing worse to put yourself in a reading slump than forcing yourself to get through a book that you know you're not going to enjoy and you don't want to finish just to mark it as read. You don't have to do that. I also have a bonus tip, and this one's going to be a little bit hard to stomach. I had to do it myself. You got to get off the damn phone. I've always been a reader. My reading speed and the number of books I read has gone up and down over the years, but I noticed a huge uptick in the amount of books I was able to read, and I've always been a fast reader, but my attention span when I was on like TikTok and Instagram doing all this short form social media consumption, I could not sit and read for more than 50 pages at a time. Once I got rid of most of my social media, I literally only have like my Patreon that I run, Substack, which I want to post on but haven't very much, and YouTube. That's all I have. I avoid Reels and TikTok as much as possible. These apps are meant to hack your biology and get you to be obsessed with scrolling. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. I literally have had this problem, and I still will find myself going on YouTube Shorts and have to stop myself because it's just so detrimental to our short-term memory and our short-term attention span. And you're giving money to corporations every time you scroll. If you don't like capitalism, if you don't like consumerism, if you don't like all the things and all the rage bait that you see, just give yourself an hour limit each day of each thing and actually stick to it. I've never gotten one of those brick things that makes you not be able to go on certain apps, but I would consider if that's something that you truly can't do on your own. Don't give corporations money that they haven't earned, and they don't really earn much money. Not much of what corporations make is earned. That should be going to the worker. But that's the end of my soapbox on that. I might have another follow-up soon with like maybe different tips or tricks or a different aspect of reading that I could give some advice for. Let me know what you want to see, if there's anything else that you have questions about, you want me to make a video on it, or just answer in the comments. Or if you have suggestions for those who need to work around ADHD or a low attention span, put them in the comments. If you watch till the end and you like my content and you're not subscribed, here's your reminder to subscribe. I put out new videos at least every week, and you can check out my other videos. I have tons of fun videos and other suggestion videos. So stay curious and creative. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.